Okay, next person that's up on the city side is Tracy Rieger. We'll bring up our community outreach coordinator. Tracy is out, as you know, in the streets doing this work on the daily. And every month, she reports to public health and safety, and she talks about successes and challenges. Sometimes she brings a success story with her to talk with us. Tonight, we held her report so that everyone can hear from her. So, welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. As I report every month to Public Health and Safety Committee, I go through the data that I receive from Catholic Charities, the women's community, Bridge Street Mission, our county jail, and then an estimate of those who might be living outside. Excuse me. So in June, our data suggests that there's approximately 183 unhoused individuals identified through those sources. So of course, that does not include individuals that are couch surfing or by some other definition of homeless. So it's just these 5 categories that we're looking at for this number. That equates to 80% of our unhoused seeking shelter and about 20% of our unhoused living outside. And of course, these numbers aren't exact, they're estimates. And I know that we have our point in time coming up in a couple of weeks where a team of us go out and we try to identify individuals in our community who are living outside or in vehicles, and we try to get resources to them and try to make them count as well. So that's coming up. In terms of Catholic Charities, they were at capacity only 7 nights for the month of June, which is great considering they weren't full the whole month, or they've only had 4 turnaways the month of June. So that to me was great. Typically in the summertime, we'll see our numbers decrease in shelter because there's individuals that prefer to be outside. And then, of course, we also have individuals that are not able to seek shelter for a variety of reasons. One of them being, they've received a strike and are not able to go to shelter. Another one may be mental health reasons. Another one may be AODA reasons. So there's a multitude of reasons why people might be sleeping outside. And I just want to make that very clear to this group, because it's not just about not having shelter space, adequate shelter space. So Catholic Charities capacity was at 91% for the month of June. And so, I think they're doing a great job in terms of getting as many people in that want to be there. And so that's what I can report on that. As far as my activity for the month of June, I did have 2 individuals get housed this past month. And I reached out to about 11 individuals besides that. So to date, I have housed 52 individuals since I started, and about 13 of them have entered back into homelessness. So that kind of brings me to the next part of what I'd like to talk about tonight, and I think it was the request of us to kind of identify what sort of gaps we might be seeing in our community related to the unhoused. And I'm speaking specifically to my work, and so I just want to share some of that with you tonight. So a recurring theme is that housing is the issue. Affordable housing is an issue for sure, but what I'm seeing, and I partnered with the Housing Authority for their Section 8 application process, and 56 individuals who identified as unhoused are in the process of receiving vouchers to get housing, which is fantastic. Some of those 56 will not be eligible for housing due to criminal records and some other eligibility things that the Housing Authority requires. But what I'm finding right now is that as I'm able to find landlords, which is the first barrier most of the time in helping these individuals, the second barrier and almost the largest barrier now is that we have landlords who are charging individuals double security deposits. And I know that in my absence, Chief Barnes had spoken to you in Finance and in City Council, and that it was approved that I could accept a grant money that I had written for through the United Way's Impact Grant to help these individuals get into housing for security deposits. When someone receives a Section 8 voucher, it's almost like winning the lottery. Section 8 vouchers are great because they allow somebody an opportunity who doesn't have a very high income or no income at all. So if some of our unhoused members are receiving a Section 8 voucher and they don't have any income, the most that they would have to pay for housing is $50 a month. So when we look at trying to move the needle on homelessness and trying to get people into housing or into a different solution other than shelter or living in a car or outside, we look at things like, what can we do to get them into housing, and how can we navigate through that? And so one of the things, like I said, that I'm trying to work on right now is the security deposit thing. So I do appreciate your approval of me being able to accept that. Obviously, the stock of our affordable units is low. This is not a new concept. The other thing that I think is really important just to share here is that when somebody who is unhoused gets housed, we're working on double security deposits, but we're also working in a space that has nothing. So they're going into an empty shell of an apartment. So I do work with resources such as St. Vincent de Paul, and I do have individuals who volunteer and give me furniture. But that is one of the things, that one of the other barriers that I'm finding is it's difficult to find things for these individuals to put in their house so they can be successful when they're there. I think Chief Barnes alluded to this too, transitional housing. I honestly can't stress it enough. If I can tell you where the failures are in the help that I'm giving people, it is exactly what Chief Barnes said, which is getting somebody housed sometimes is the easiest part. Keeping them housed is the hardest part. I brought a lady last month who was my success story, and she, even though she's doing great, is still struggling with that transition out of homelessness and into her own space. So if we had an abundant transitional housing program in the city, that I think would help us tremendously. The last thing we want to do is get somebody into a year lease and then have them get evicted. It puts another barrier on their record to not being housed again. Ongoing case management. So in my opinion, there needs to be additional personnel working on this issue, whether that is volunteers doing mentorship or additional staff out on the streets doing this work. I think it's really important to identify that it can't be one person or two people or three people doing this, because the problem is bigger than that. The other thing that I noticed recently in the last few months is I'm seeing a lot of individuals that are coming out of incarceration. And so it would be awesome if we could do some more comprehensive discharge planning with not only prison systems, but mental health facilities, people that are in a 28-day program who are about to be released, and there is no housing option for them. So they get housed back onto the streets, and then they relapse. And so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So working on that would be great. And then just transportation, which has kind of always been an issue. I have individuals that want to work, but they don't have a way to get outside of the city limits of Wausau to get there. So that is what I can provide tonight. Do you have any questions?
Okay, and Tracy has the best firsthand knowledge, I mean, as far as our departments for what she's seeing out there. Does anyone have questions for Tracy? Oh, Alder Gisselman, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about the people that are not coming, for instance, to Catholic Charities? So you obviously the census of homelessness people is steady, perhaps even growing. I'm not sure, but so where are they in the community, in parks, tents? Can you describe, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but if you can describe that, a little bit of the sense of the homelessness that don't come to Catholic Charities, but yet are amongst us.
Sure. Well, I can't give you specific numbers on how many are doing what, but I can tell you that with the people that I have come in contact with that are not seeking shelter, it's due to some of the other reasons that I had mentioned earlier. Their mental health, they're not able to be in a congregate setting. Their alcohol and drug abuse issues. They want to be able to use and they can't. If they leave the shelter for the night, they can't go back. So those are two issues. And then, I don't want to speak negatively at all, but I will say that there has been some concerns that individuals have presented to me about safety. And I think you get that in any shelter. I'm not here to, single out any one shelter, but there are people that don't seek shelter because maybe something happened on the streets with another homeless individual and they don't feel safe going to shelter. So there's really a magnitude of reasons why people don't seek shelter, and those that aren't in shelter are finding either a friend's house to sleep at for the night. Maybe they are camping somewhere where they're deep in the woods, we can't really see them. I don't know if Chief Barnes or anyone else has more detailed information about, number of encampments that, we have dealt with. But from my perspective, that's what I'm hearing. You're welcome.
Okay. One other thing that I know we identified in our task force as creating a bit of a shift in the shelter model is that Salvation Army recently has shifted its model to serve families and not single individuals anymore. Do you find that is, it's not winter yet, but that will probably put significant pressure on the shelter systems that we have today, right? Do we have a storm brewing for the winter?
Well, I think it's yes and no. So what I can tell you is Salvation Army still reports to me their number of turnaways, and they're having less and less turnaways of single individuals. So I think that the message as a whole that is out about them just sheltering families is out there. So they're not seeing a lot of individuals even come to their doors that are single. Yes, I think that we're going to find once it gets colder that we're going to probably have inadequate shelter space just because Catholic Charities has capacity to only shelter so many people. And then where do the other people go? And I know that you're going to be asking Craig Vincent about Community on Call, which is an initiative to kind of help with that. But it only helps with that during certain conditions, right? So I don't have the answer as to what happens outside of that.